Hello and welcome back to the NHL Best Bets. Yesterday there were a handful of early games. We had a picks for one early game and then one bit later matchup, and let's go those picks through first. Here Columbus continued their trip in Nashville, and result was same pretty much like day earlier. Nashville won 3-1. Last one was empty netter, so quite even game. But Nashville was maybe just a bit better than Columbus again this time, and that was a lost bet. And then other game, Detroit surprised Chicago on Saturday, and then went back to their standard level yesterday. The game was pretty much what we predicted. First two periods, 2-1. Chicago was leading, but then suddenly Detroit decided not to play anymore, and the end result was 7-1. Kevin Lankinen again was one of the cornerstone of Chicago's team. He saved 44 shots during the game, especially in the first two rounds. Tommy, would you change these picks if you would have a mulligan?
Yeah, what's the definition of insanity is that you do the same thing again and again, expecting different results. So this is what we did with the Columbus against Nashville. So the game was exactly the similar way that it was the previous one. So maybe that we could change, but yeah, Columbus has a lot of issues now. They're not playing to their level. They're not doing the grinding that they need to do in order to win these games. It's not that good a team offensively that they can start playing this sort of slow and puck control type of thing that they may be trying to do. Not sure, but the game overall was not very good. Good level. The performance of neither team was impressive at all. So. Yeah, good goaltending, but that's about it. So issues with both teams. Columbus really disappointing of these two games that we picked, and they lost. So I blame John Tortorella and the boys. And the picks were okay, but the performance was awful.
It was good, but game was bad.
Yeah. The other game, like you said, two periods looked really much like it was gonna be an under, and then exploded in the third period. Chicago a lot better team. Detroit did shoot a lot more early on, but the shots were not maybe the A grade kind of stuff that you need to do in order to beat Lankinen. And Chicago played as they are capable of. Now they have four lines that they are able to put on the ice at any moment. So it looks like they are firing with all cylinders. And of course, the result 7-2 might not exactly be truthful in this case, but they were a better team. But yeah, don't score 6 goals if we are betting the under in the third period. So again, maybe a cash out early on would have been in place here.
Yeah, I think these both games were not as we predicted all the way to first periods. Yeah, and then like I said, Detroit maybe already thought that game was over after two periods. Then a few other games that we discussed yesterday. Like I said, New York Islanders would be tough team at home after first loss. So back-to-back games, very strong team, won Pittsburgh convincingly 2-0. And then we also discussed that Boston should bounce back against Rangers, and that's exactly what they did. So I think good calls from there not to bet those games that the machine provided some value.
Yeah, this time the professional insight was better than the machine's mind. So, yeah, New York Islanders extremely well played defensively. They allowed only 10 shots on goal in two periods from Pittsburgh Penguins. So that was an impressive effort by that team. A very, again, like we keep repeating, very Barry Trotz-like defensive effort. They scored when they had to and took the very well-deserved victory in the end. And a shout out for Semyon Varlamov, which was a good thing for him as well. Struggled a little bit in the previous game. And then same thing, like we said about Boston, that they are not going to lose a lot of games in a row. And now they bounced back against the Rangers team that couldn't get anything going. So again, we were correct and the machine was wrong. But let's try to trust the machine in the future.
Yeah, that's what we do, because machine has showed the accuracy of predictions year after year. There is again good games expected tonight, and we have picked two of those. New month and new picks. Carolina plays second game against Florida in Sunrise. First one was 3-3 after the regular time, and in shootout Carolina took then 4-3 victory. A very even game. Now home team Florida look for bounce back, get plus 110 odds, so good value there in this 50-50 game. And then Vancouver goes to Winnipeg. Winnipeg has recently started to play better and better. I think the Patrick Laine Dubois trade was better, at least in short term, for Winnipeg if we compare Winnipeg and Columbus performance recently. And vice versa, Canucks have lost last 4 games in a row against first of all Winnipeg twice and then Edmonton twice in Vancouver. So now when these teams are facing frozen tundra, Winnipeg, even though the odds are not the greatest, is good value pick here.
Yeah, the Florida game first. They did lose last time in the shootout actually against Carolina at home. Now they are ready for a bounce back. They played pretty well, especially towards the end of that game. Now 1 day off and then coming back to the same thing. Home ice advantage plays a part here. Florida can match their lines a bit, decide when to play the top line and all that. So I think Florida will take advantage of this. Carolina, of course, maybe a tad better team overall, but especially if Florida manages to get their offense going now. They've been a little bit lacking in goal scoring and in production lately, but I do believe that they have the chance to take the 2 points tonight, maybe after a shootout or an overtime. It is a 50-50 game in our books. And then the bookmakers are having Carolina quite favored here. So good odds for a home team in a pretty much of a coin flip of a game. And quite the other way around in Winnipeg, a lot better team at home. Like you said, Patrick Laine Dubois trade has played well for Winnipeg. Even if Dubois was out for a while, Winnipeg is now playing a lot more solid defensively. They're maybe not so heavily relying on their top line, all these sort of things that are then making it more balanced effort. So they won now 4 in a row, and against Vancouver, that has, on the other hand, lost 4 in a row. I think it's a really heavy favorites in Winnipeg for the home team, and we do have them winning quite heavily. How many percentage? About 64% for Winnipeg when the odds are this great. So have to play this through Jets.
Yeah, and when we take a look of historical records between these two teams, now after this season they have met 11 times in last 3+ seasons, and guess what? Vancouver has won once. So 10 times for Winnipeg, once in Vancouver, and that also backs up a little bit the trend that Winnipeg should be the one here that we would place our bets and make some profits out of it.
Yeah, overall, Winnipeg is a lot better team. I think the odds makers are still looking a little bit in the past when Winnipeg's defense has been playing not so well and maybe a little bit problem scoring as well. So now they are playing much more balanced hockey, and it works really well, especially should work really well against a team like Vancouver, who is very up and down, young team, not very confident at the moment.
There are also a few other games that have some value for the bettors based on the machine. So like we discussed a while back, Ottawa is the one that can surprise all the bettors as well as opponent teams. They won Calgary a few nights ago 6-1 and then lost 2 days ago 3-6. So now if you think Ottawa will continue their roller coaster upwards, there's some value for home team in this matchup. And then other interesting game in Scotia North Division, Toronto continues playing Edmonton, and when Edmonton was sleeping or the offense was sleeping last game, 4-0 result. Now it looks like Toronto is a favorite on the road, at least based on our simulations. Do you think it would be worth to bet one of these games?
Ottawa is an interesting team to bet on because they are a very up and down team, a young team. They have the possibility to surprise any team, especially like in the first Calgary game when Calgary was kind of thinking that it's going to be an easy game for them, and then they suffered from that a lot. So maybe Calgary has learned their lesson this time around. So there is still value for the home underdog in this case because the odds are very heavily favoring Calgary. So we have plus 137 for Ottawa here, and the simulations are indicating about a 50-50 matchup. So Calgary is not the best of the teams either. So I think Ottawa does have a chance, and it's a good home underdog in this case. And then in the other game, Edmonton usually is favored by us, but of course it affects that they didn't score a single goal last time against Toronto. Toronto took a clear victory there, and now they are favored for 57%, while the odds are indicating around 51. So Toronto now a road favorite in the second game. Edmonton is looking for a bounce back, but Toronto was quite convincing in the last one. And of course, when you manage to zero Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid completely, it should be enough to beat Edmonton Oilers.
Then if we go to the Toyota West Division, there we have 3 interesting games. Minnesota goes to Vegas, and I think quite surprisingly Minnesota is favorite in our simulations, while bookmakers still think home team is quite a bit better there. And another game, Colorado goes to San Jose. They won Arizona a few nights ago 6-2 and continue now their road trip to Northern California, where San Jose can maybe remember the St. Louis game that they lost 7-6. So do you think there would be over possibility here in this game, even though the total line is maybe 6 in many bookmakers?
I do believe that the teams will learn from their mistakes, and they maybe go back to a little bit more defensive, even if the result was not that bad for San Jose. Scoring 6 goals against St. Louis is not that bad, but I think these games are going to be, well, of course, the probabilities are that they're going to be like a little bit less high scoring. We have Colorado winning San Jose quite clearly according to the simulations, but not that many goals scored. So maybe 6 is the right total in this case. And then you have Anaheim hosting St. Louis. The same thing. St. Louis is a heavy favorite, but the under is more likely because of the opponents are not usually heavy scoring teams. So a better team does not have to go to this sort of shooting frenzy, and it's probably enough to score a couple of goals to win these games.
Okay, what do you think? Any other games that is still having some interest, or maybe we covered all of them? St. Louis goes to Anaheim now, so from Northern California to Southern, and his favorite. Anaheim hasn't won, I think, in last few weeks, or they have been struggling quite a bit. So do you think St. Louis will bounce back and learn from their mistakes?
Yeah, I think that's expected. It's a very good defensive team, so allowing 6 goals is not an option for them anymore. So I think they will. What I forgot to mention was about the Vegas-Minnesota game, that we do have the away team as a slight favorites, which was really surprising, like you said. 52% for Minnesota. But when looking at the statistics, Vegas has not been able to score a lot of goals. Minnesota has, so that's where the difference comes from. In the past couple of games, Minnesota has been extremely productive, and they've scored with a high percentage from their chances. And like we've been repeating this as well, but let's say it again, Vegas is not that heavy scoring team. They struggled last year in the playoffs a lot. They've struggled this year as well. So even if they have these wingers that are able to score a lot of goals, they haven't really been that productive as maybe many would have expected. Maybe it's the lack of the proper centerman in the team, who knows, but probably a low scoring game, and that might turn the favor into Minnesota this time.
Yeah, I think Minnesota has found their stride, even though they have been playing against these not so great California teams recently. But they beat Colorado on the road 6-2 a few nights ago, and their last loss is actually 2 weeks ago when they came back from their 2-week break to play in LA. And when we were not able to train for 2 weeks at all. So that was a 4-0 defeat by the Kings. But since then, 6 wins in a row, quite convincingly. Anaheim, San Jose, Colorado, and Kings twice. So looks to be very, very hot team.
Yeah, and they played really well. They have found their system that works for them. It looks a bit like St. Louis in their best days. So they are playing through defense, but they're really efficient in scoring. They create good chances, not so many of them, but good enough to score. And there are a couple of players who have taken a step up rather surprisingly, like Joel Eriksson-Ek, for example. Not a lot of expectation, but he's there and scoring almost a point per game. So very good players, but not star players. So that might help the team cohesion a lot, and they are playing very balanced type of hockey at the moment.
Yeah, let's see if there is a reason to use this one tomorrow, or shall we dump it somewhere for better days of Golden Knights hockey?
Yeah, I'm sure I will be wearing this Florida tomorrow as well.
I hope so too. We'll see who is wearing what tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.